Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Brand Exchange podcast. My name is Yohji. I am super excited to welcome our guest this week. It's Mr. Albert Cuadrante. He has an absolute breathtaking amount of experience in so many fields. I'm just trying to start listing down a few experience points. He was a brand manager at P&G, VP of marketing at Jollibee. That should ring some bells even for our international listeners. And then also various titles as head of digital commerce and other roles at the Jollibee Food Corporation, which holds many chains and restaurants here in the Philippines. He's the chairman of Acumen Strategy Consultants and, of course, the current CMO, Chief Marketing Officer at Unionbank. Albert, thank you so much for being on the show. We are very excited for you today.
Hi, Yohji, and thank you for the invitation. Likewise, I'm very excited to have a chat with you today.
Awesome. Straight out of the Unionbank head office. Albert, you have worked with some of the most iconic and Filipino at its core brands and companies in the country, and currently leading the Unionbank branding marketing team to reach new heights. And I'm super excited to hear more about that. But maybe before we talking about the big guys, let's rewind a few years and maybe give our younger listeners as well a few nostalgic snippets of how it all started. I think one of the first experience was the P&G one. I don't know if that's correct, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about how, and maybe more important, why did you start in the brand marketing communication? I don't know how it was called back then, world. So yeah, please enlighten us.
Well, my interest in marketing really started back in college when I took up a brand management course. And I
Okay.
remember that was a very pivotal part of my interest in the marketing field because I was fascinated at how people worked on building these iconic brands that we use every day, we interact with every day, and to understand what goes on behind the scenes was so intriguing to me. As early as the college days, I said I want to be able to be part of that. And one of the leading marketing organizations until now is P&G. The reason why I was so attracted to Procter Gamble, I really was so determined to get in there because they
Wow.
invented brand management.
Okay. Yeah.
So I thought, what better place to learn that from than the people who actually invented it, right? I think they started the practice of brand management in the 60s, and one of the
Wow.
beneficiaries of this practice is the brand Kamay or Kamay in the Philippines. It's a beauty soap brand. So that was really my aspiration, and thankfully, I eventually got in Procter and Gamble, built a career around there. I stayed almost 6 years in that company. I
Wow.
consider it as the foundation of my marketing career because it almost felt like a business school. You learn so many things that you never learned back in college, even if you took up a business course. Again, I think I credit a lot of how I started as a marketer back to my stint at Procter and Gamble.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I completely support the learning by doing fact in the real world. So around what time was that? What year was that?
Oh, this was 1994,
1994.
very long ago for many people.
Wow, 1994.
Yeah.
Brand management. I love
Were
it.
you already born?
Yeah, I was, but not. I would not understand the word management. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, back in '94, that was when I started at P&G.
And that was here in the Philippines.
Yes, it was here in the Philippines, but part of my role in the latter part of my stint there was have some oversight on some ASEAN countries like Vietnam and
Mhm.
Thailand.
So brand management, did the word brand strategy at that time exist already, or was that
Oh yeah,
actually,
very
yeah?
much. This is the thing that is actually very unique in brand management because as the term implies, it's managing a brand like. So you're actually the general manager of that brand. So it's not
Okay.
purely marketing in the sense of communications, promotions. It's not. In fact, I would even say that was maybe just 40% of what we did. And the
Interesting.
majority of what we did was actually formulating business strategies, which were then magnified in the communication material, magnified in the promotion and selling material, etc. But the core foundation of that would be the thinking behind how you translate your consumer and market understanding into strategies that amplify the business agenda of that brand.
Wow. So you, as a brand manager, you are the, let's say, the CEO of that brand. You would be above the sales team and above the finance team as well. Like you would basically dedicate where the resources would go to of that product.
No, we worked with them. I wouldn't say we
Okay.
were we were above them, but we worked with them closely because we co-owned the profit and loss, the financial statements, the P&L of each brand. A brand
Okay.
manager also had ownership of that. So you were accountable for the middle line and the bottom line as well, not just the top line, which is traditionally what many marketing people concern themselves with.
Right. Yeah, I think so many people nowadays kind of lose track of that you're actually running a business or you need to make money and just so focused on, okay, how can we tell this cool story without completely, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's the discipline that we're always trying to bring out with especially the younger marketing practitioners.
I had that conversation probably a million times with people. It is, yeah, with the current media, it's pretty easy, or let's say much easier to get sucked into one specific thing than having a kind of high level view. That's the world we're living in.
Yes.
All right. That was extremely interesting. Thank you so much. There is one from all your experiences. There is one common title that we share as brand strategists or brand consultants or strategy consultants in whatever combination you would like to put them. Can you tell us a little bit about how you became the chairman of a company or founder of a company that really executes that service, strategy consulting? What's exciting about it?
When I moved on from P&G after 6 years of staying there, there were opportunities for me to get involved as a consultant in a private practice. So I didn't have a company yet. People got me as their own consultants for marketing, and many of these are Filipino companies, local companies. And what I noticed was, and which is what I discussed earlier, many local companies really just saw marketing as, oh, can you help me develop my next advertising? Of course I can do that. That's part of what I do and what I love. But
Yeah.
the question you always ask is, what story are we going to tell? What's the basis for the ad? In short, what strategy are we going to be
Right.
operating from, right? And you get a blank look sometimes. So I thought that's a great opportunity because it allows you to find a place in the market where you can transfer what you've learned in your previous company and share it with the local company. So I founded Acumen, which is the consulting firm that I am the chairman of right now, in 2002. So that firm has been existing and is still there, and it's been the whole purpose of that firm is really to try and level up local companies in the same playing field as multinational companies. So if you notice, even my career progression after PNG has always been with Filipino companies, because that's been my personal purpose and vision is to help Filipino companies level up, be more globally competitive, be seen as equals with the multinationals, and even someday be the business case in business schools, like right now Jollibee, I can tell you, it's a business case in Harvard. And some of the when someone was writing the business case for Jollibee, we were co-writing it with them so that
Oh,
they can
wow.
present it well in the Harvard Business School. So that for me is very fulfilling because you can say that you were part of that initiative to
Okay.
elevate the status of the Filipino brand into the international market.
Oh, wow. I just wanted to ask you what was your most memorable moment, but maybe you just answered it of introducing one of the most iconic brands to Harvard School and like basically teaching not just the Philippines, but the rest of the world what the great rise and brand development of Jollibee is. But I don't know, do you have anything else to add? I'm sure you have millions of great stories.
Yeah, I mean, for us here, we see when in Acumen, when we work with a lot of the local companies, we really see that here in the Philippines, they're already considered big, but many of them evolved without necessarily deliberately creating a marketing strategy behind their evolution of being big. They were
Mhm.
natural beneficiaries of
Right.
people being more affluent in the Philippines. And so
Being there at
there
the
were
right
not a lot of
time.
competitors back then.
Right.
So you would really increase your business, right? But now that the market is a little bit more competitive, now that there are international players coming in, challenging your position in the market, now you begin to realize, so hang on a minute, I can't just be lucky, right?
Yeah.
You have to be very deliberate in how you put yourself, where you place yourself, how you relate to your consumers, how you promote your competitive advantage. And all of these things put together is what we call strategy.
Right.
It goes back to that foundation where everything has to have its place with the ultimate goal of creating preference. So apart from, Jollibee, I think Ayala has been a great brand also on its own, very progressive. San Miguel, so all of these iconic
Right.
brands that you see at the moment over the years have also evolved and beefed up their own marketing strategies, branding strategies in a way that allows them to compete in the global arena.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm seeing that change slowly happening every time I take a trip to the inner cities. Things are adapting, and I can't wait to see where this journey will all lead us. But let's have another podcast in 2 years and discuss that story. All right. I want to tackle one more field that I, by choice, don't have too many things, too much to do with, and that's advertising. And I know that you took your educational purpose and your educational kind of mindset already into action by having, I think, a lecture at Ateneo University, which is one of the biggest universities in the Philippines. And I don't have the opportunity too much to talk about advertising, so I just would like to take it now and ask you, what is advertising today? Like, how has it changed from 10 years ago, maybe? And yeah, I just would like to get your opinion on it because I'm sometimes really confused about advertising these days.
Well, if I was to oversimplify answering that question, I'd say that advertising is anything that really promotes and communicates the brand's equity and
Hmm.
message, with the ultimate goal of, like I said, creating preference for that brand over its competition. And if it doesn't have a competition, then it just strengthens its loyalty among the consumers. For example, if you're in a monopoly, doesn't mean that you don't need to do marketing or advertising, because you really need to develop that kind of loyalty among the people, right? For you to be
Right.
able to charge a little bit more, etc. For them to be forgiving when you fail, and
Hmm.
all that. So to me, that is the oversimplification of what advertising is. It's really anything that promotes and communicates the brand's message. Now, your question is, how has it evolved? It's evolved tremendously over the at least, since I've been practicing it. Whereas before, as you know, we were dominated by broadcast, traditional media, TV, radio, and print. Now the explosion of online media and digital media, there's so many more options. And I think the biggest shift now in that evolution is, whereas before you have a captive market, right? Where you have no choice but to watch the commercial. Now people can switch you off or not even watch you at all, skip the ad, for example, right? So the control, I would say, has shifted more to the viewer, to the consumer,
Yeah.
rather than before where you just had to sit and watch through the commercials. That's why the Super Bowl was such a big hit. Everybody looked forward to the Super Bowl commercials because you really sit through the Super Bowl commercials, right?
Right. Yeah, that's one of the, I think, last remaining strong pillars of what
Right.
advertising has left. I mean, it's, I realized it yesterday again, and I thought to myself, I think if I'm scrolling through Instagram, which besides LinkedIn is the only platform I'm using because I'm trying to cut down, and I thought like I realized myself watching something for maybe 1 or 2 seconds because the quality was really nice and it had a great opener. And then I scrolled up a few centimeters and I realized, oh, it's from Hendrix Gin or some, I don't know, some other drink. I realized in advertising, and even my brain liked it. I said, nope, I'm not gonna watch advertising. No. And I kept scrolling until, a few minutes and shut down my phone. It's the reputation of advertising has been damaged so badly, in my opinion, that I'm not willing to watch, even if it would be good to me. But just I don't want to. I'm not committed to give any company my time that I don't know.
Yes, I agree with you because that was actually the reason why I also taught advertising in school, because one of my pet peeves is really bad advertising, and bad advertising, as you've already correctly said, gives it a bad reputation and people become averse to it, right?
Hmm.
And unfortunately, this also impacts good advertising. So the reputation of advertising to me has been tarnished a lot by people just creating a lot of trash. And the reason for that is because they don't do the homework behind creating the ad, and they're in your face. The worst kinds of ads are the ads that, well, for me, are very intrusive, and also they don't feel like they're well thought out, and also those that are too hard sell.
Yeah,
So it
pushing
doesn't
you too
feel
much. Yeah.
natural. They push you too much. And so those for me are, you wasted your money.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Just one more thing is that when we're talking about this pushing, and I think one thing that you said earlier about the way advertising has changed is really shifting it more, that the consumer now has a higher ground, or has the power now to choose for them. In the end, right? Advertising is a form of communication, and then as a brand you have to tell your followers or tell your customers a story. So it's technically storytelling. And me observing maybe for the last 8-10 years, let's say, is really that before, in print TV, you really had, those were your only channels to tell a story to your customers. And now, because of social media and web and Google and all these kind of things, is that people can look you up anytime you want, and like you can't just tell one story anymore, right? You just have to be real. You just have to really be real on so many different levels for people to say, okay, this is not a scam, this is real, this is, I can trust this. That first of all, it became so much harder to be a brand, and then that also having a reputation or having a brand and investing in branding kind of replaced advertising. I just would like to get your opinion on that, because I find that so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, to your point, no, the fact that there's now more power for the consumer, they can quickly check facts. For example, I mean, the Google University is what we term it, right? So anything you see in an ad, you can Google it. Are they saying the truth? And you can Google it. You
Right.
can even Google people's reviews on the brand that's been advertised to you, and if they're telling the truth, are people happy with it? So there are more and more ways now to validate what ads are saying, and I guess that's where you're coming from when it's so much harder now to really communicate as a brand, because you need to be, number one, authentic.
Yeah.
You need to be and feel authentic. No, the material needs to be and feel authentic. And I think that's the overall goal of any communication material coming out of a branded product, is coming off really as someone who's genuine with the message that you are saying. And of course, you have to tell the truth because you can be fact checked anytime. Yeah. It needs to feel very organic to the lifestyle of the person that you are talking to, so it doesn't become an intrusion. So when you advertise, for example, in social media, in digital media, you have to take into account that digital as a platform is a two-way platform, and unlike TV, which is a one-way platform. So we have to unlearn, at least the digital migrants like myself had to
Yeah.
unlearn that fact that advertising is a template, because it's not
Mhm.
a template. It's not create one and then edit for the different formats. Before, it was the practice where you create a TV ad, take out the video, that becomes your radio ad. It was as simple as that before, and then take one frame of your commercial, and then that becomes kind of the print ad. So it became very templated that
Mhm.
way, and it people for a while got used to something like that. And now,
Right.
obviously, you can't do that anymore, but it's still being done, because if you see some ads, the ads that are on Facebook are the same ones that appear in Instagram, in Twitter, etc., where you don't make full use of the strength of each platform. And that, to me,
Right.
is, again, waste of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was perfect. I could name you a million examples that people posting their Instagram photo on LinkedIn, and,
Yes.
waiting for the same result on a business platform. Okay. Well, I hope we have some business leaders today joining in and getting some value out of this. This is amazing. All right. We talked about authenticity. You talked about organic approach. I think that will give us a nice bridge to talk about branding. And Albert, that's something I ask every guest on our show because I'd like to accumulate as many opinions as possible. Albert, what is branding?
Okay, that's branding is a very, very big word. And people use that very loosely to mean so many different things, right? And so my point of view, I'd be very interested to see and hear what the others have told you. So after this, I will watch your other podcasts. But branding for me is bringing to life the brand positioning that you have articulated for that brand across the touch points that your consumers are found in. So it's bringing to life the brand. That is for me branding. So there are many elements under that definition. One is advertising, one is packaging, the other one is probably distribution management, etc. So
Mhm.
that to me is in the end, how is your brand coming to life?
Mhm.
That practice is brand.
I love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, my favorite so far because you ask is especially marketing and branding. I think we would maybe get only 10% of somewhat right results if we would go through the metropolitan areas in the Philippines and ask people what branding and marketing is. But in my opinion, it's still just marketing is about people doing something, and branding is about people feeling something. And that in terms of just channeling your actions or your investments into those channels, I just it just makes a lot of sense if you start looking at this way, right? And that's why I also asked earlier about advertising, because if we assume that I'm correct and saying marketing is how you do people make people do something, and branding is about making people feel something, then advertising is, I guess, still making people do something, just on a different communication level.
Yeah, because I think fundamentally, I always go back to, we marketing people, you market brands, not products,
Yeah.
right? So the brand gives a product its identity, its image, and therefore it's almost like a personification.
Hmm.
So branding has to be able to introduce that person to another person. And you're absolutely right, coming to life because your brand needs to feel alive. Cannot
Yes.
be static. It cannot be, just one size fits all. It needs to feel very alive in each person that it tries to talk to.
Yeah, I like the word you used, personification. I think that's why we build brand personas, right, in
Correct.
strategies, and that's why trying to find brand archetypes and other things to just connect it back to something humane, because that's what we used to, right? It's so much more intriguing if we are talking here face to face, or people see our faces. Then I just put, I don't know, the Acumen logo on the right and our logo on the left. It's such a huge difference, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Another way I'd like to see branding in and that is into visible and invisible or unvisible traits. And I mean, you're a strategic consultant, and you know what I'm talking about, but maybe I'd like to have the discussion with you to say, when you try to educate the Filipino companies, and tell them about, hey, take a step back, think about why you're doing this, think about, what's the purpose of your current action, and then think about the visible and invisible traits of a brand, meaning like the invisible being like the core values, our mission, what drives our culture, right? Like all these things that really fire up people for the action, all the way to the visible traits that are very obviously like colors and logo design and web design and product design and all these kind of things. So I'm very interested, like, what do you tell to your clients? What's your take on this?
If you go back to the analogy of a brand being a person, right?
Hmm.
Um, we always say don't judge a book by its cover, but you judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
You can't. How can you not? That's what you see. No, so and this is especially true for brands. The brands taken on an identity that needs to be experienced by the senses when you see, when you smell, when you etc. No? So if you go back to the analogy of a person, it's how you dress that person up. But no matter how good looking a person is, if that person is rotten in the core, then it's not going to be a lovable person. We know
Nope.
so many nice looking people who are horrible, who you don't love, right? So to me, you cannot hide what's inside just by fixing the outside. So
Mhm.
that's how I would like to see, the invisible part of branding is you need to be very deliberate with the essence of the brand inside, the articulation, you mentioned values, the purpose. In
Yeah.
short, defining the equities of the brand that later on will be skinned by what's on the outside and consistently communicated that way. But determining
Yeah.
what the right values are, that's a very lengthy exercise because that
Mm.
has to be able to be relatable.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Authentic
again,
as well.
going back
Like
to the point of authenticity, yeah.
right.
So for me, the invisible, if I go back, is the soul, and then the visible is the body. That's
I love
how
it.
the relationship is, and you cannot break these things apart because if you have a rotten soul, no matter how great your body is, people will know, and people will ultimately. You wake up, you have no more customers. In the case of a person, you have no more friends. So,
Yeah.
but you're still good looking.
Yeah, that's. I don't think that's a good life, but maybe for some people. that that was perfect. I love that. I totally agree that the strategy, the foundation of a company is the company's soul, and you have to take some time to figure out what your soul is all about and who your soul is. What your soul is really feeling, as cheesy as it sounds, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So basically, all the things that we discussed in the past few minutes is already a great description of brand strategy. I actually wanted to tackle that topic individually, but I think we had a very good summary of what brand strategy is: figuring out the soul, being consistent, aligning your team, staying true of who you are, and starting from the inside out. Those are all, I think, very fair descriptions. For us, we work with companies in Singapore and Philippines, in the US, even in Europe, and I definitely experienced that European, or I guess let's call them Western. I don't fully agree with that term, but anyways, companies to be definitely a bit more familiar, a bit more confident with that topic brand strategy, and definitely still a few years behind over here. So when you talk to your Philippine companies, is that brand strategy, is that still a new word? Like, do you still have to explain that?
in the field of marketing, like I said, I think it's still some companies separate the strategy development. They have what sometimes companies will have a corporate strategy team, right?
Yeah.
And some companies will have other teams like sit under the finance group to think about strategies for the business. So, but I think in consumer goods companies that's already pretty much embedded in the marketing group. But in non-consumer goods, retail, for example, or in the banking sector, there are very different ways to practice that. So
Right.
whenever you enter a different industry, you will also notice that marketing is practiced very differently. And there's no right or wrong way. It really depends on
Hmm.
what the industry needs. Except that I think we need to. I have had to remind people in different industries that you really cannot separate the strategy from the execution of marketing.
Hmm.
Because when you do, and we've seen this time and again, garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yes.
And so it's really very very evident when a piece of material, an initiative, an activation was not grounded on a real strategy.
Hmm.
And so that's a reminder that even seasoned marketing practitioners sometimes fall into the trap of because you know you get into the day to day, you just run after timelines, right? Deadlines. So there's not a lot of time spent in terms of really thinking about strategy. And part of strategy is actually not only knowing what to do, but knowing what not to do.
Oh, yes.
We forget that sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, day to day is a very dangerous trap that everyone sometimes needs to get pulled out from, even the greatest minds in history, for sure.
Yes.
I think that's even the reason why external consultants like us even exist, because you just sometimes don't have the power internally to put everyone on the side and say, okay, let's take a break. No sales calls today. Let's focus on us a little bit. Let's see what we can do better next year. Let's see what has not been good in the past few months or whatever. Right? I think taking a break on the company soul is very important as well.
Yeah, and also offering a different point of view.
Yeah,
Sometimes
of course.
you're really so focused on already what you internally know and want to do, but somebody has to tell you, give a diff or challenge, and later on after they challenge, you might come back to, okay, we're still going to do what we need to do because we thought it through. But what's
Mhm.
important is that somebody challenged your thinking.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thanks for the addition to that. One last thing on brand strategy, and that would be I know that you guys at Union Bank also like really try to support entrepreneurship, and I know that you are a big believer into the entire, I guess, mindset, right? So, what if some of the entrepreneurs are listening to this today? What would be a good advice for you to get kickstarted on that soul building, on brand strategy, on starting at your core? Maybe a DIY solution if you have, but any Kickstarter from your end.
Maybe it will sound a lot easier than what it really is, but I think
It's always yeah.
as an entrepreneur or someone who's wanting to elevate his or her own business, I really encourage you to understand why you are doing this business, right? So we go back to really articulating. And when I say articulate, I need you to write it down so that you don't forget, so that you're also clear, and so that you can cascade it to the rest of our or the organization. Articulate your purpose. And this is actually one of the things that attracted me to join Union Bank. I've been with Union Bank for just a little over a year now. I
Yeah.
joined Union Bank last year. One of the things that attracted me to this company is their purpose. Their purpose of financial inclusion. It's a very high level why they are in business for. Of
Mhm.
course, you need to be a profitable business,
Yeah.
but the articulating that to say that when we're profitable, everybody else must prosper, right?
Mhm.
Prosperity needs to be inclusive. And one of the values, in fact, of the bank is what they term as Ubuntu, which is an African term. I think you know that also. No? So
No, I don't know. Please explain it to us.
Ubuntu is one of the values where essentially I am because we are. That's kind of the
Okay.
principle behind that. So whatever my success is because of the collective success that I also bring back to the community, to the team, to the organization. So
Right. Without your team and your customers, you will be just an empty building.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's inclusive.
Okay.
It's very inclusive, and that's why
Okay.
I thought that it was a unique articulation of a value that I feel we all need, especially now that we're trying to recover from this pandemic and the crisis. There's a lot of political division in our country. So the sense of Ubuntu, or the sense of inclusion, community, inclusive prosperity, I think more and more is so much needed. And this is really why, while we support entrepreneurs, we're also making sure that part of that support, financial support, is also education or literacy support, financial literacy. How do you take care of money?
Right.
And when you've made a little bit more, how do you revolve that so that you become more prosperous to the next level? So things like that. It's a very holistic approach to support, financially support, lending you credit, giving you all the tools. But at the same time, we're also concerned that once you have that money, you got to know how to protect your money
Right. Absolutely.
and make your money also help other people. So pay it back.
I'm now 3 years into the Union Bank app. I'm very happy, but I'm definitely also looking for features like that, and I'm definitely excited to get more financial literacy tips from it and from all of you guys. So I love the purpose. I hope you guys fulfill it strongly. I'll be waiting here on my phone.
Oh yeah.
And
One most recent collaborations that we did around financial education is we had a tie-up with education.ph.
okay,
And part of that tie-up is really promoting financial literacy among the young people so that they start building good habits, financial habits early on, and creates the foundation for their success in the future. So we did education.ph is probably the top edutech platforms in the Philippines now. It's a has a very good base of young people in entering college, and entering the workforce. So
okay.
of that demographic.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, providing opportunities to the young guns out there to not putting 50,000 pesos into your Coinbase account. Yeah, I think there are safer options. This was such a great discussion. I could ask you a million more questions, but we actually already went over time. I do have one fun question for you that I thought about after reading your profile, and that was: do you know why all fast food chains have mascots as their primary or one of their primary brand elements or brand communication line? Why is that? Is that just because they want to drag the kids in there, or am I missing a big piece?
No, the mascots actually, and particularly for Jollibee, play a very, very important role
Yes.
in the strategy of the brand. You're right. One is to build that whole fun aspect, relatability with the kids, etc. No, but as well as I guess it gives the persona to the brand. And if
Yeah.
there are some mascots that are not as cute as others, if you know what I mean. but so I think you also need to be very deliberate when you choose a mascot, not something that
Hmm.
can cause nightmares, but really create
Yeah.
that fun, that whole wholesome, etc. So it gives it a sense more of relatability, but also a little bit about the persona of the brand, right? And it allows you. It's again, how do you make the brand more alive? So
Mm.
if you look at and you Google the Jollibee mascot, so many people pass around his videos when he dances,
Yeah.
when he makes people happy when they're sad or something like that. So it really really helps put more organic and authentic material into the brand's communication, I feel.
No, it's so amazingly strong. I mean, you guys must have definitely put that into your Harvard review of the brand growth. But the funny thing is that I asked my son how the Jollibee looks like, the mascot, and it is so funny that it is so famous that no one is even looking up closely. Is it a bee with a chef's head, or is it something else? People don't even care. It's just so marked in for such a long time now that it has been already iconic. We don't have to wait any longer. There's really no need for that. Are there any mascots planned for the Unionbank team, or is that parked for the most creative team?
We get asked that, and also questions about who's going to be your endorser. The best way I would answer that is, what's the right personification of the Union Bank brand, right? So right now, there are no immediate plans to launch a mascot for Union Bank. I'm not sure if it needs one at the moment, but definitely,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not an absolute no, because at one point we may discover that having such a mascot improves the relatability. We have our chatbot is named Rafa, and
Okay.
before we used to have an avatar that represents
Okay.
Rafa. It was never really developed beyond that. It's just for now it's an avatar for the chatbot, but no real mascot yet, and no
Yeah, I'm just
endorsement yet.
I'm I'm just mocking your experience to your new role.
I'm tempted though.
Yeah, I can see it in your eyes, Albert. All right, everyone. Oh my God, what a 40 minutes already. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Thank you so much for your insights, for sharing your experience, for fueling some aspiration to our younger viewers. And I am very thrilled to maybe invite you again in 2 years. Maybe let's see if Rafa became a mascot. But until then, thank you so much.
It was my absolute pleasure, Yoji. Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to our future chats.
All right. Bye. Okay.